Can I get your recommendation for someone who's 40 years old and has been experiencing very heavy menstruation, cramp pains, along with feeling of tiredness, depression, and anxiety? That's all the information I have for this person. Maybe have her use Vitex?
I mean, anytime the cycle is off, you definitely could start them on regular Vitex and just a couple of drops on the finger and then rubbed into the temples. Like I usually have them do a couple drops, touch the fingers, and then rub it in. If that's not something they want to do, a couple drops in water and take it internally, but every day. That will help to regulate the cycle and usually if the flow is too light, it regulates that. And if it's too heavy, it will regulate that. One of the things that you could also augment is clary sage. Clary sage, inhaled a few drops on the wrist or applied to the abdomen can be also very helpful. Things like tarragon and a little bit of lotion rubbed in the abdomen, the abdominal area, like below the belly button, like to the belt line, can help any sort of cramping or something like that. The depression, what was it? Like there was depression and what was
Anxiety as well.
anxiety and depression? Yeah. Yeah, anxiety can be several different things.
Oh, and
Um,
tiredness.
Fatigue, tiredness. Yeah, we don't know any more information, just that stuff. We don't know anymore, just that
was-
information.
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. That's all they know. Yeah.
Yeah. You're kind of working with like a little bit of partial information, and so there's still things that could be thrown out there. Sages are really good for general issues with the body being out of whack. Different than clary sage, just regular sage, Spanish sage, can be helpful in the treatment of depression. Also like fatigue, where there's potential fatigue, and also the overstimulation of sensory nerves. You could also say that sage is very protective of the nerves or the nervous system as well. And so always a choice in this area. If we knew a little bit more, sometimes with depression, I treat it with like rose or ambrit, or if it's just too much introspection, I would use something like cinnamon, but given the heavy menstrual cycles, I'd probably not use cinnamon. So you might go back to the sage and things like that. St. John's wort is always a potential in the mix for depression. It could help a little bit with anxiety. Anxiety, there's different reasons or different causes. Sometimes it's actually physical, sometimes it's respiratory. And then there's, psychological things like feeling out of control or things to do with the future, things just feeling unstable. And so, tarragon is a potential. Palo Santo is always very good for treating potential anxiety. If they are tending to obsess a lot about things that are going on or might happen or potentials, bay laurel actually could be good for that. And bay laurel would be taken internally and can be helpful for that. In fact, going back to Troy, I would probably have you take a couple drops internally to help to minimize the grinding at night, and even maybe a couple of drops internally of marjoram, but like separately, even just a few minutes apart. That should reduce the tension in the jaw somewhat. It might not wipe it out completely, but it might take the edge off, right? And so in this particular case, if the person is, really focused or fixated on, the future in work or in a relationship, or just the state of, what it's like out in the outside world these days, the bay laurel would help, and even potentially mugwort. Mugwort would just be inhaled or a few drops on the wrist, but a lot of inhalation with the mugwort. And that could be helpful as well. So there'll have to be a little bit of an evaluation of what's going on. Sometimes when I'm interacting with people like this, I can kind of pick up on a little bit of what's going on, and I'll fine tune it for them, just because of how they're talking, and how I hear their voice, and I can pick up on a lot. So here, we're not having that. So I'm just going to have to throw out some things that you'll have to potentially explore. And if we know more information, we can potentially go through and treat it. But if you don't, that's a good place to start. Always deepening the breath is always good. The thing that I like about Palo Santo and even something like Galbanum is, they can help with anxiety, but they're also very calming to the limbic system, which sometimes just starts to calm everything down, just calms everything down. And so, again, it kind of depends on what's going on, but those are all great places to start, and you can just start having them work with something and find something that works. I mean, things that are also sedative in nature, kava, spikenard, vetiver, even lavender, all of those are potentials, but sometimes we can know it right off the bat, and sometimes you might have to keep playing with something and have it be a multifaceted approach and treat it that way. And it sounds like there's a lot going on, so hard to say just straight up, but good places to start though.
How long to